I'm Ralph Ferguson, Managing Director of the Texas Tech University Ethics Center. And today I am speaking with Paul Rusesabagina. Paul, I want to ask you a couple of questions in reference to your experience and in Rwanda and also the outcome of telling that story through Hotel Rwanda with the starring role by Don Cheadle. You had a great many experiences of course, during that period of time in history. And what I'd like to find out, what is the challenge today with xenophobia in Rwanda?
Actually, this is what the international community does not know. Rwandans, Hutus, and Tutsis do not themselves hate each other as portrayed in our history. Only politicians who would like to divide and rule, they are the ones who always tend to use one group of individuals, be it Hutus or Tutsis, in order to dominate the other one, in order to maintain themselves in power.
And then let me follow up with that. What role does colonial history play in xenophobia across the continent? How it works, one as a political vehicle. What is the relationship to the colonial history?
When it comes to Rwanda, the colonizers played one of the most important roles in dividing Rwandans. They found themselves in an already divided society, where Hutus that time were more or less like slaves to Tutsis. So they exploited that advantage and they used Tutsis to dominate over Hutus. They took Tutsis to be more intelligent, more elegant, more closer to the West, whereas Hutus, and this was even what the Catholic Church thought at that time. If you follow what Bishop Class of Belgium wrote in 1926 to the King of Belgium, telling him that, listen, those Hutus have not been created to be leaders. They have been created to be led. They are not intelligent. They are just stupid people who need orders. Do not make a mistake of giving them responsibilities because they won't do anything with it. So Hutus that time, the majority, had started claiming to get involved in the national politics. But then the Catholic Church, the Catholics who were so powerful, they kind of advised the king not to get Hutus involved in their own politics. And by 1933, that is when we got our first, Rwandans got their first IEDs. They went as far as saying that Tutsis are thinner, with a thin face, close to Europeans, as I said previously, and they are more elegant, they are taller, and this became a kind of criteria of making a difference between races, which was not true.
Right. Thank you. Let's go a step further and come to today and look at what's happening in Europe. What are your views of the migration to Europe, especially to your adopted home of Belgium, due to the instability? What do you see the outcome being with this mass migration of individuals that have been disenfranchised?
Oh, what is so disappointing is the fact that you see people whom we have seen crossing borders from Syria, from Iraq, from any other country, through Turkey, through Greece, coming to far west, Western Europe. So these people are the ones who mostly are involved in raping women. This was the case in Germany at the New Year's Eve this year. This happened in the train station. So you can, some of them are involved in even in terrorist acts, activities. So this is going to kind of block the migration coming from any country to Western Europe and definitely to America. You see, there is a tension. Today, you see that everybody is threatened by lack of security, by ISIS, all of those organizations. So leaders have got to understand, to hear the people they lead.
And that leads me to my next thought. What are the lessons for world governments to pick up on with the migration and the history that you come from, having witnessed the genocide? What are the 2 or 3 points that the world governments have got to pick up on to prevent or reduce the risk of this kind of thing occurring?
One of the most important lessons I've learned throughout my whole life is that whenever we see a neighbor's house burning, we should think about the neighbor, because if we don't, we are the next victims. Okay. And the world has never learned that lesson. We saw what has been going on in Rwanda since 1990. Before the genocide, many people were being massacred. In each and every one closed eyes and ears, because the world did not want really to get involved in what was going on. So by closing eyes and ears, they came apologizing at the end of the whole process, in a shame, ashamed by what had happened. People came on their knees apologizing. We are sorry, we did not know. And everybody knew. But we did not want to get involved. So we have to get involved in whatever happens. Exactly. This is one of the most important lessons. If we are involved, we can stop whatever is supposed to happen before it happens. We see someone with a gun, without any documents to carry a gun, and we wait until that gun has killed someone in order to say, oh, that was a gun.
Right, I get you. Thank you. Let's move in sort of in a different direction. Mm-hmm. Right now in the U.S., the African Americans maintain sufficient wealth to be equal to being ranked as the 16th or 17th national economy, if they were a country. How would you see African Americans getting involved in the continent, across the continent, to assist in lifting and supporting nation building with the leaders that want that kind of participation?
We need African Americans as we need Americans as a whole. African Americans being a kind of a power in itself.
Correct.
We need their wisdom. Africa is very rich. That is not our problem on our continent. But the problem is not the wealth, but who has it? How is it exploited? We need African American wisdom. Those people who went through what they went through, who have a long and tough story behind them, kind of legacy. We need to learn from them, Africans. But we also need America as the whole continent, as a whole, as partners of the nations and not individuals.
Correct. Would you foresee then that to get this talent pool involved in different countries, that some of the nations in Africa would be willing to have dual citizenship to draw the wealth of the African American community into the continent as a vehicle?
Well, I know in many countries, many people have dual nationalities. Even myself, I believe I'm still Rwandan, if the government has not yet kicked me out, I believe that I'm still Rwandan. I'm also a Belgian.
Okay.
I'm supposed to have two passports, but unfortunately I came to Belgium as an orphan. But many who went back home are still Americans, are still Belgians, and they are proud of being of two nationalities. It helps. It helps you in doing business.
Correct.
It helps in opening the minds. Yeah.
Thank you. The next thought I'd like for you to give us some reasoning on is that many countries transition in the continent of Africa, and they transition with strongman leadership. And we've witnessed that strongman leadership just simply does not have durability, and oftentimes is an economic failure. Is there a logic to why strongman leadership persists on the continent?
Yes, there is. Because there is no strong man who creates him or herself. All of those strong men you see in the developing world are created by developed countries. Behind each and every screen, video. Have you watched Nintendo?
Yes.
Behind each and every big screen, where you see the big
Yeah.
jumping guys or kids playing. So behind the screen, there's a kid manipulating what we see on the screen.
Correct.
So behind each and every developing country dictatorship, there is always a Western superpower.
Pushing that.
Pushing that kind of, how do you call it, Nintendo? So behind that,
Yeah. I
that
understand.
that image, there is that big, huge, strong guy. There is another small guy manipulating.
Yeah.
Playing around.
Being the puppet master.
Yes,
Being the puppet master.
there's a puppet master.
Thank you for your comments,
You're welcome.
and I appreciate you spending this time with us this afternoon.